The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we go further, if you want extended lore, cutscenes, and members-only timelines that never make it to YouTube, the link to our Patreon is in the description. Not recycled air, not the chemical aftertaste of oxygen processed through filters that have been scrubbing a dead man's breath for 23 years. Not metal, not the low iron hum of a suit that has kept him alive the way a cage keeps a bird alive. Technically, completely, without mercy. Water. Cold stone. Something flowering and alive drifting up from the surface of a lake 60 feet below a balcony railing, carried on a wind that is cool without being cruel, the kind of air that exists only in places the war hasn't reached yet. The second thing he registers is that there is no respirator. His chest expands, stops, expands again. The lungs, his lungs, flesh lungs, the ones he was born with and thought he'd lost forever on a black shore with lava on 3 sides, and a brother standing over him saying things he'd spent 2 decades trying not to hear. Those lungs fill completely on their own. No mechanical cycle, no metered compression, just the simple animal act of breathing, which he has not performed without assistance since he was 22 years old and the galaxy still had a shape he recognized. He doesn't exhale for a long moment. He is afraid if he moves, it will stop. It doesn't stop. The air keeps coming, the lake keeps breathing its cold green smell up through the balcony, and somewhere below, a waterfall runs its endless quiet commentary over rock, and his heart, one heart, organic, knocking against ribs he can feel, ribs that are not fused to a life support chassis, beats without him having to think about it. Then he becomes aware of the warmth against his mouth. She is kissing him. Padmé Amidala is alive, and she is kissing him, and her hand is on his jaw, her thumb resting against his cheekbone with a gentleness so careful it feels like she is afraid he will break. And the sun over Lake Varikino has turned the water behind her into something that looks like hammered copper, and she smells of Maluran blossoms and clean water and the particular warmth of a person who has just made an irreversible decision and is not afraid of it. "I truly, deeply love you," she said. He heard it through the last fraying seconds of whatever he was before, whatever abyss, whatever silence, whatever state exists between the end of one consciousness and the beginning of another. And the words arrived before his body did. "And before we die, I want you to know." She pulls back a centimeter, eyes still closed. The waterfall. He doesn't move. He cannot move. Not because of paralysis, not because of damage, but because the man currently standing in this body, the man wearing this face, these 19-year-old hands, this unburned skin, has not yet fully reconciled what the air tastes like with what his last memory is. The last thing he saw was the Emperor's throne room. The last thing he felt was his son's face. The last thing he understood was that it was over, finally over, and he had made one right choice in 23 years, and it had cost him everything, and he was ready. He was not given ready. He was given this. Padmé opens her eyes. They are dark and steady and so alive that looking at them is a specific kind of violence, the kind with no wound and no name. She searches his face the way she has always searched things, looking for structure, for truth, for the architecture beneath the surface. There is a small crease between her eyebrows now, the one that appears when something is not adding up. "Anakin," she says. Not a question, almost a question. He knows this moment. He lived this moment. He has carried it for 23 years. The way you carry something that is both treasure and evidence. Evidence of who you were, of how briefly you were that person, of what it felt like before the wanting became desperate enough to burn everything. He knows what the original boy said next. He knows the exact angle of his own earnestness. He knows the words that came stumbling out of a 19-year-old's mouth, full of sincerity and zero skill, too much feeling and not enough armor. He doesn't say those things. He looks at her. He lets himself look, actually look, without the red filter of a helmet's photoreceptors, and without the grief and without the guilt and without the 23 years of her being dead. She is 24 years old. She has no idea what is about to happen to either of them. She has no idea that the man she just kissed finished burying her, in a different version of this universe, in a white gown with her hands folded, in a funeral procession on the streets of Naboo while a baby, their son, the son who grew up to call himself Ben's father and mean it as his best self, while that baby was being carried to the other end of the galaxy by a man on a sand planet who would not know what to do with a child, but would figure it out. She has no idea. She is 24 years old, and she is alive, and she has just kissed him like it is the last thing she will ever do, and the irony of that is so complete, so mercilessly circular, that he has to look away. He looks at his hands. The right one, then the left, both of them hanging at his sides, both of them made of skin and bone, and the particular geometry of a person who spent his childhood rebuilding machines with his fingers until the motion became unconscious, became prayer. He flexes them. The knuckles shift, the tendons pull, the nerve signals travel the distance they are supposed to travel, arriving where they are supposed to arrive, finding muscle instead of wire. 45 years old, wearing the hands of someone who has not yet done any of it. The thumbs, the length of the fingers, slightly too long for the palm, which was always true, which Padmé used to, he stops that. He closes the hands, opens them, closes them. The waterfall, hey, her voice is softer now, different register. The senator voice is gone. This is the voice she used in private, the one she spent 3 years pretending she didn't have. He hears her move, hears the whisper of her dress against the stone, and then she is in his peripheral vision, not touching him, but close. You went somewhere. I'm here, he says, his own voice, 19 and unbroken and nothing like the thing the suit made of it. He used to try to remember what it sounded like and find only silence, only the mechanical rasp that had replaced it. Now here it is, just here, still his. Still the one Obi-Wan spent a decade sighing at, and Padmé spent a year pretending not to love. She studies him for a moment longer. He can feel it on the side of his face, that particular quality of her attention, precise, patient, the attention of someone trained to read rooms and find the truth in what people don't say. Anakin. He finally looks at her. She is holding his gaze with the careful steadiness of someone who has noticed that something is wrong and has decided, for the moment, to hold the question rather than ask it. The line between her brows has deepened slightly. Her chin is level. She is not afraid. She is almost never afraid. And this, too, he had forgotten. Not the fact of it, but the specific shape of it. The way her courage is not the absence of knowledge, but the presence of decision. She has decided, right now, in this moment she can't yet name, that whatever is happening to him, she is not leaving. He has known this about her for 23 years. He forgot what it felt like to be standing on the same side of it. I'm sorry, he says. She waits. He stops, looks at his hands again. I just need a moment. The lake burns copper below them. The waterfall does not stop. The wind off the water is cool against his face, his real face, the one that does not require a mask to cover what the suit left behind. Somewhere in the distant meadow, a shack makes a sound like an exhaled question. He is 19 years old. He has 45 years of memories, and a dead wife's voice in his chest like a coal that never fully cooled, and a galaxy that does not yet know what it is about to become. He has 3 days, perhaps 4, before his mother runs out of time in a camp in the Jundland wastes. He has 8 days before Geonosis. He has, if he plays this with the precision it requires, the one thing Vader never had, enough warning to be useful. He closes his hands into fists, opens them. He does not take his eyes off them. Behind him, Padmé says nothing. She stays. The waterfall runs. The sun finishes its work on the lake, and the copper bleeds out into the first silver of early evening, and the 2 moons, Omadun and Rory, appear at the edge of the sky like something that was always there and simply needed the light to change before you could see them. He breathes. He breathes and does not cry. He does not have the time. He does not have the right. And there is too much to do in the days between now and the end of something that never had to end at all. But he breathes. For one moment, in the last light over Varikino, he just breathes. He does not sleep. This is not a choice, exactly. It is closer to a recognition that sleep would require surrendering control of a consciousness he has only just reclaimed, and the body beneath him is 19 years old and exhausted from a week of performing normalcy. And if he closes his eyes in this bed in this room with the waterfall audible through the stone wall, he does not trust what his mind will build in the dark to greet him. He runs numbers instead. This is something Vader was always good at. The arithmetic of violence and time, the cold geometry of a situation stripped down to its essential variables. He lies on his back in the dark, with his organic hands flat against his chest, feeling his own heartbeat, and he calculates. Shmi Skywalker Lars was taken by the Tusken clan from the South Ridge approximately 30 standard days ago. Klieg attempted the rescue with 30 neighbors. 26 did not come back. Klieg came back missing a leg and carrying a grief so complete he had already begun making peace with it by the time Anakin arrived in the original timeline. The Tusken camp is 7 kilometers northeast of the Lars homestead, in a sandstone canyon system that shifts its silhouette depending on wind patterns, but whose geography he knows by its coordinates, not by landmarks, because landmarks on Tatooine are just obstacles waiting to become graves. His mother, at this moment, has been in that camp for 30 days. She has, at a conservative estimate, 4 or 5 days left before the damage becomes irreversible. He is not certain of this. He cannot be. 23 years of Vader's memories include the face she was wearing when he finally reached her, the specific exhaustion of a body that has been methodically dismantled and is waiting without rancor to be done. But the exact threshold between repairable and permanent is not something he has medical data on. He has only the memory of her eyes, and the minute or two she had left when he arrived, and the too specific knowledge of what those eyes looked like before. He needs to leave today, not tomorrow, not at a reasonable hour after a reasonable conversation with appropriate deference to the situation he is supposed to be navigating with Padmé, and the cover story and the Jedi Council's mandate to keep them both hidden and safe while Obi-Wan does the actual detective work elsewhere. Today, before the twin suns are overhead, before the heat makes the Junland wastes impassable without a vehicle, and he does not know yet what vehicles are available to him, and this is a problem, and he is working on it. He is still working on it when the door opens. Padmé does not knock. She never knocked in the original timeline either, which he found infuriating at 22, and finds, now, specifically moving, because it means she trusts that any room he is in is a room she is allowed to enter. She is wearing something simple, traveling clothes, practical, the kind she packs for herself rather than letting Dorme pack for her, and she is carrying 2 cups of something hot, and she takes in the scene of him lying flat on his back, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, with the expression of a person who has been doing complex mathematics in the dark for 6 hours. She sets both cups on the bedside table. "You didn't sleep," she says. No. She sits on the edge of the bed, not beside him. At the foot of it, angled so she can see his face. This is the way Padmé always sits when she is about to have a conversation she is already prepared for. "Are you going to tell me what happened last night?" The muscles in his back pull, 19 years old and already carrying tension in all the same places, which tells him something about how the body holds its damage even before the obvious damage arrives. He takes one of the cups. The warmth of it against his palms it takes him a second to process. Just warmth. Just ceramic and heat. The simplest thing, and it lands on him with a weight it has no business carrying. "I had a dream," he says. The word is technically accurate. It is also insufficient in every possible way, and Padmé knows it, and he can see her measuring the distance between what he has said and what she is going to let him get away with saying. "About your mother," she says. He looks at her. "You said her name," she says, not apologetically, just as information. Twice, around the 3rd hour. He had not known he'd done that. He registers this without showing it. "Yes," he says, "about my mother." How bad? The question is specific. She is not asking if the dream was unpleasant. She is asking him to rate the emergency, because Padmé Amidala processes crisis in tiers, and she wants to know which tier she is working in. "Bad enough," he says. She's in trouble, real trouble, and it isn't a dream. A beat. The waterfall outside, steady and indifferent. "How do you know?" "Because I know her," he sets the cup down. "I know where she is. I know what's happened to her. I know how much time we have, and it isn't much." He meets her eyes. "I need to go to Tatooine today." Padmé is quiet for exactly as long as it takes her to fully process what he has said and decide how to respond to it. This is a length of silence that most people fill with something. She does not fill it. The Council's mandate doesn't apply to my mother dying. Another silence, different quality. "Anakin," she says his name the way she sometimes does, not as a name exactly, but as a request. "Stay here, stay with me. We are here because someone is trying to kill me. We are here because the safest thing for both of us is to be somewhere no one is looking. If you go to Tatooine, I'll be careful. That is not what I mean. I know what you mean." He stands, crosses to the window. The lake below has not yet caught the morning light. It is still that particular gray-blue that exists in the minutes before the sky decides what color to be. He watches it. You mean I'm 19 years old and I am proposing to travel alone to the most lawless planet in the Outer Rim to find a Tusken camp and extract one person, and that this sounds like something that will go wrong in a direction that ends badly? She doesn't answer. This is its own kind of answer. I'm not going to be reckless, he says. You are historically reckless. Not today. He turns. She is watching him from the foot of the bed, with the specific expression she wore in the original timeline whenever he said something that landed differently than she expected. Not wrong, not alarming, just off, just a half step outside what she'd prepared for. He has been landing that way since the balcony. He does not know how to stop. I have a plan, I know the location, I know the route, I know the camp structure, the numbers, the patterns. I need a ship and a medical kit and approximately 18 hours. Where would you get a medical kit? From the retreat's emergency supplies. Naboo has regulations about stocking them in all rural residences. I checked last night. She looks at him for a long moment. You checked, she says. Yes. In the middle of the night. I didn't sleep, he says, as if this is obvious. As if it explains the inventory he ran of the entire retreat's storage systems between the second and third hour, while she was apparently asleep enough to only hear his mother's name, and not the rest. Padmé stands. She does not look away from him. She crosses the room in a way that is deliberate, without being confrontational, stopping close enough that he can see the decision forming behind her eyes, the moment the calculation completes and tips to one side. I'm coming with you, she says. No, I have a Nubian shuttle in the lower hangar. It is the only ship on this property. You cannot fly it without me unless you bypass the security codes, and if you bypass my security codes I will be both genuinely unhappy and also stranded, which is, I'll be back in 18 hours. Anakin. Not a request this time, something flatter. My security codes are biometric. You cannot bypass them. She pauses. Can you? He could. Vader could pull the security layer on a Nubian shuttle's biometric lock inside of 4 minutes using the environmental controls. He knows the architecture. He has dismantled more sophisticated systems than this with worse tools and darker rooms. He does not say this. No, he says. Then I'm coming. She moves past him toward the door, already in motion, the thing decided. I'll get R2. He can manage the medpack configuration if you tell him what we need. Give me 8 minutes. Padmé. She stops. Doesn't turn. This is going to be... He pauses. Finds the right words, which are not the exact right words but are the ones that fit inside a conversation a 19-year-old might plausibly be having. It might be hard to see what they've done to her. She turns then. Her face is composed, not unaffected. He can see what it costs her, the steadiness, but composed. I know, she says. I've been to the Outer Rim. I've seen what hard looks like. She holds his gaze. 8 minutes. She goes. He stands at the window. The lake below has made its decision about color now. It is going gold at the eastern edge, the first light catching the surface and pulling it open. Somewhere above it, the shuttle is in a lower hangar he has not yet seen, and in 7 minutes Padmé will have it ready, and in 8 minutes he will be standing in it with his hands on the controls and his mother's location coordinates already mapped in his head, with a precision that has nothing to do with the Force and everything to do with memory. He breathes. He picks up the cup from the bedside table and finishes what's in it. It is something bitter and hot that he doesn't have a name for, some Naboo cultivar that Padmé drinks every morning, and he has never tasted it before and he will not taste it again for years, and right now it is the best thing he has ever put in his mouth, because it is real and it is warm, and he is standing in a lake house on a green planet with his heart still beating on its own. He sets the cup down. He goes to find the medical storage. Tatooine smells like nothing alive. This is what he forgot. Not the heat, he remembered the heat, but the specific quality of air that has been stripped of everything organic by 2 suns and 10,000 years of desert indifference. Coruscant smelled of metal and exhaust, and 8 trillion people going about their lives. Naboo smelled of water and flowers, and the quiet insistence of things that grew without being asked to. Tatooine smells of mineral and dust and the absence of apology. He breathes it in. Padmé, beside him on the shuttle's ramp, says nothing. She has been reading his silences since Varakino and cataloging them the way a good senator catalogs discrepancies in a budget report. Not to confront yet, but to understand the full shape of what she is working with. He appreciates this about her. He does not say so. The Lars homestead is 3 kilometers southeast. He knows this. He also knows the model of moisture evaporator they run on the western edge of the property, the layout of the subterranean living space, the name of the animal Owen Lars was going to purchase at the Mos Espa market the following week, and the exact chair Klieg Lars will be sitting in when they arrive, because Klieg has not left that chair willingly in nearly 30 days. He tells Padmé to stay with the ship. She looks at the landscape, flat, bleached, extending in every direction without feature or mercy, and then looks at him. "I'll come to the homestead," she says. "Not a negotiation, just a correction." "Fine." He starts walking. Not further. The transmission is 47 seconds long. Obi-Wan's voice arrives with the particular compression artifacts of a signal bounced through 3 relay points to get from Geonosis to a Nubian shuttle parked in the Tatooine desert. Slightly flattened, the consonants clipped, but recognizable. Unmistakably his. The calm in it is the specific calm of a man who has assessed his situation, found it bad in most of the directions he looked, and decided that panicking about it would not improve any of those directions. "I have tracked the bounty hunter Jango Fett to the Geonosis system," the recording says. "The Separatists, led by Count Dooku, have gathered with representatives of the Commerce Guild and the Trade Federation. The Geonosians have constructed a significant droid foundry within the primary Spire complex. I am transmitting coordinates. I have been captured. I expect an execution order is forthcoming. Relay this information to the Council. Do not." It ends there. The signal cut, not the man. Padmé stands at his shoulder and says nothing for a moment. Then she says, "He's alive in that." "He's alive," Anakin says. Not a question. She looks at him sideways. She has been looking at him sideways since Varakino, with increasing frequency and increasing precision. "You sound certain." "I am certain. He is. Obi-Wan Kenobi does not die on Geonosis in any version of events he has lived through. He dies much later in a corridor on a space station, on his own terms, with his eyes open. But that is 20 years away, and he is not going to think about that right now. They want him alive for information, they'll put him in the arena for execution, and use the spectacle to make a point. He looks at R2. How long ago did this transmission originate? R2 calculates and reports. 14 hours. He runs the numbers. Geonosis is a 30-hour journey from Tatooine at standard hyperspace, which means Obi-Wan has been a prisoner for 14 hours, and the Jedi Council, if they received a separate transmission, has been mobilizing for roughly the same amount of time. Mace Windu will have already assembled a strike team. Yoda will already be moving toward Kamino, where the clone army is waiting in its accelerated growth tanks with its inhibitor chips quietly installed and its order protocols quietly ready. But he cannot think about that right now either. One thing at a time. One catastrophe. "We need to reach the Council," Padmé says. She is already moving toward the cockpit. "I know." He follows. "I'll talk to them." She pauses at the cockpit entrance and looks back at him with an expression he has learned, across 3 days, to read as that was specific in a way that requires explanation. He has been producing that expression in her with increasing regularity. "It should be me," she says. "I'm the senator. I have standing. You're a Padawan who's supposed to be protecting me, not—" "I know what Dooku is going to do," he says. "On Geonosis. I know where he'll be and when and what he'll do when the rescue attempt comes. And I need to be the one who explains that to the Council, because you don't know it and I do, and we don't have time to discuss how I know it." Padmé is very still. "How do you know it?" she says. Not a question. The senator voice, the one she uses when she is treating a conversation as testimony. "I've studied him for years. This is true. Every engagement report, every intelligence file, every account from Jedi who fought him and survived long enough to submit one. He studied Dooku the way Vader studied everything. Not from curiosity, but from the cold understanding that the galaxy killed the unprepared faster than it killed anyone else. His tactics, his positioning, the way he uses a command post as a retreat, not a headquarters. He'll watch the arena engagement from a position above it, and when it turns against the Separatists, when the Jedi arrive, he will not fight his way out. He'll move to a private landing platform, a pre-positioned ship. He'll be gone before the battle is half over. You're saying the rescue fails. I'm saying it succeeds and Dooku escapes anyway, and that's worse, because escaping Geonosis with what he knows about the Republic's military response means the war starts immediately. He goes back to his leadership. They know what we have. They know the scope. He sits down in the pilot's seat, unless someone intercepts him at the ship. She sits in the co-pilot seat and looks at him steadily. Someone, she says. He opens the communication channel. Jedi Council frequency. Secure relay. Mace Windu's hologram is the size of his hand, blue flickered and sharp, and the expression on his face when he realizes who is on the channel is the expression of a man who has filed Anakin Skywalker in a specific category of problems that require monitoring. Anakin gives him the relevant information without preamble. Obi-Wan's capture confirmed. Dooku's position confirmed. His own location, Tatooine, delayed by a personal emergency, now resolved. His current course, Geonosis, 30 hours, no. He checks with R2, 26 hours, hyperspace optimized. The strike team is already assembled, Mace says. How many? That's not your concern, Padawan. How many? He says again. Same tone, no change in it. Mace's hologram is still for a moment. 212. He does the math, 212 Jedi against the full resources of the Separatist droid foundry on Geonosis. It is enough to make a point. It is not enough to guarantee a clean outcome without the clone army. And the clone army is Yoda's variable, and Yoda's timing is what it is. That's enough, he says, but Dooku won't engage them directly. He'll withdraw. I can intercept him at the landing platform on the Eastern Spire's lower level before he reaches his ship. I need you to make sure the strike team creates enough pressure to push him toward the exit. Silence. Then Mace says, you know his extraction point. Yes. How? Research. He meets the hologram's eyes. Master Windu. With respect, we have 26 hours. You need to decide whether you want to spend them asking me questions I can't fully answer right now, or whether you want to spend them ensuring the strike team's entry coordinates account for the Foundry's secondary defense grid on the north approach, which the intel you're working from almost certainly does not include. Another silence. Longer. Send me the secondary coordinates, Mace says. He sends them. I want a full debrief when this is over, Mace says. Everything. How you knew what you knew, where you've been. All of it. Understood. The hologram closes. Padmé has been watching this entire exchange with her arms crossed and her expression carefully arranged into something that is not the thing she is actually thinking. He is familiar with this arrangement. He has missed it in the specific way you miss something that frustrated you while you had it. You just directed Mace Windu, she says. I gave him information. Mace Windu. She says the name again as if confirming it refers to the same person both times. He's a practical man. Underneath, he starts the pre-flight sequence. When there's something more useful to do than be angry, he does the useful thing. Padmé is quiet for a moment. Outside, the twin suns are moving through their separate arcs, doing the thing they always do, indifferent to everything beneath them. Anakin, she says it carefully. What you told him, that you know Dooku's extraction point, that you know his tactics, that you know the defense grid, that's not research, not in any way that should be possible for someone your age. He does not answer immediately. He runs the jump calculations. The numbers resolve cleanly. They always resolve cleanly now. The math that used to take him minutes taking seconds. The Vader brain with its 23 years of necessity running underneath the surface of a face that is supposed to belong to someone who still makes arithmetic mistakes. I've spent a long time, he says, thinking about what went wrong the last time someone tried to stop this war before it started, about what information they didn't have, what moves they didn't make. He engages the engines. The shuttle lifts and Tatooine drops, and the color of the sky goes from bleached bone to pale blue to the dark that is not dark but the edge of space. I am not going to make the same mistakes. She looks at him for a long time. He keeps his eyes on the viewport. Which war? She says. You said this war, as if there's been another. There has always been another war, he says. The question is always whether you know enough to end it before it starts. She doesn't push it. She unfolds the star chart on the console between them, studies the Geonosis approach vectors, and starts identifying the tactical variables the way she has identified political variables for 8 years, systematically, without drama, preparing for the thing rather than the feeling of the thing. This is what he loved about her. He does not say this. He looks at the hyperspace tunnel and thinks about a landing platform on the eastern spire of a Geonosian hive, and a solar sailor waiting there, and an old man who carries a curved lightsaber and believes, with the complete and tragic sincerity of someone who was once great and became something smaller, that what he is building will be worth what it costs. He has 26 hours. He knows exactly what to do with them. Geonosis from orbit looks like an open wound, The planet is rust-red and cratered, its surface a network of spires and hive structures that read from space as organic until you get close enough to understand they are architecture. Deliberate, layered, built by beings who understand mass production at a biological level and have never found this troubling. Beneath the cloud layer, at the coordinates Obi-Wan's transmission provided, something is burning. The sensor array reads energy discharges consistent with lightsabers and the specific weapon signature of B-1 and B-2 battle droids in concentrated engagement. 212 Jedi are down there. He watches the sensor readout for 4 seconds. The engagement is centered on the primary arena complex. The Petronaki, a name he knows the way he knows most things now, not from study but from memory. From standing inside its walls 23 years ago with sand in his mouth and a reek's horn under his legs, and the complete certainty that this was not how he was going to die. The battle is active. The Jedi are holding. The clone army will arrive within the hour. Eastern Spire, he says. R2 marks the coordinates on the approach map. We land here. Adequate. He brings the shuttle down fast and without the usual deceleration curve, and Padmé absorbs the impact without complaint because she learned to fly on Naboo and knows what a pilot choosing speed over comfort looks like and does not require an explanation for it. How long do we have? She says. Dooku will hold his position until the pressure on the arena reaches a threshold he can't ignore. Then he moves. He is already checking the blaster she insisted on carrying from Barricino. Compact, Naboo-made, more accurate than its size suggests. 20 minutes, maybe less. She checks it herself. Chambers, charge, sightline. She does this with the efficiency of someone who learned to shoot before she learned to give speeches, which is the correct order. And the Magna Guards. 2, possibly 4, they travel with him as close escort. He starts moving. They're designed to counter Jedi. Their electrostaff frequency disrupts lightsaber plasma. That sounds like something you should be telling me because you need me to handle them. Yes. Good, she says. Not sarcasm, just confirmation that she has filed the information where it belongs. She follows him out of the wash and into the base of the spire without further discussion. Geonosis smells of iron oxide and something underneath that, biological, faintly warm, the persistent ambient output of a hive structure that is alive in the way colonies are alive, the whole more animate than its parts. The sounds of the arena battle reach them as a low, irregular percussion. Weapons fire, the specific mechanical screech of a droid taking damage, something that might be shouting and might be the acoustics of the spire carrying sound in ways it wasn't designed to. The interior of the Eastern Spire is not a battlefield. It is a corridor system, functional and unlabeled, built for Geonosian dimensions and therefore slightly too low and slightly too narrow, and they move through it with the lights out because the lights are already out, the power having rerouted to the foundry and the arena systems, and he navigates in the dark the way Vader learned to navigate in everything, by what the Force tells him is ahead, by the texture of space, by the negative presence of walls. He finds the first Geonosian sentry before it finds them. He finds the second 111 meters further along. Neither sounds an alarm. Neither sees Padmé, who moves through the dark beside him with her hand on the wall, and her breathing even, and her blaster in the ready position, and who does not ask how he knows where to step. The landing platform is at the spire's 5th level. They take a maintenance shaft rather than the main lift. The lift would announce them, and he has spent 23 years understanding that announcement is the enemy of advantage. The shaft is cramped and vertical, and smells of Geonosian engineering, which smells of chitinous resin and electrical heat. At the top, through a blast door that he opens with a force manipulation of the locking mechanism rather than the control panel, the platform. It is circular, carved from the spire's eastern face, open to the Geonosis sky on one side. A solar sailor is docked at the platform's edge. Dooku's, specifically his, the only model of its type in the system, a thing of curved metal and silk sail elegance that would look appropriate in a museum, and is in practice a fast, quiet ship that has never been tracked by any Republic sensor array because no one ever thought to look for it. The sail is furled, the boarding ramp is lowered, he is waiting to board. Padmé takes up a position behind a support column to his left. He stands at the platform's center, in the open, in the light. He waits. Dooku arrives 90 seconds later. 4 Magna Guards first, the tall, gray-robed combat droids that move with the fluid efficiency of things built for one purpose and given no capacity to regret it. Then Dooku himself, white-haired, bearded, moving with the unhurried precision of a man who has decided that urgency is beneath his dignity even when it might be warranted. His curved lightsaber handle hangs at his hip. His robes are immaculate. He has been watching the arena engagement from a position of comfort, and he is leaving because the outcome has become mathematically inevitable, not because he is afraid of it. He sees Anakin at the platform's center and stops. Not surprise exactly. Dooku does not do surprise. He does the rapid recalculation that looks like stillness from the outside. He takes in the figure in front of him, 19 years old, Padawan braid, the white of the Jedi tunic, and he performs the same calculation that Palpatine has been performing for 2 days, which is that none of the math adds up, that this boy keeps appearing in positions he has no tactical reason to occupy with information he has no legitimate access to. Skywalker, he says. The voice is everything the reputation promised. Deep, measured, carrying the register of a man who has spent 70-plus years being the most intelligent person in most rooms and has made a philosophy of this fact. You are either extraordinarily brave or extraordinarily misinformed about what happens next. I know exactly what happens next, Anakin says. The Magna Guards move. Padmé fires, not at Dooku, at the column above the nearest guard's head, where the support structure, weakened by the spire's ongoing power rerouting, gives way under directed blaster impact and drops 200 kilos of carved stone onto the guard's central chassis. The second guard pivots toward the new threat. Padmé is already behind a different column. She fires again. The guard raises its electrostaff to deflect. She shoots the electrostaff, not the frick shaft, but the power coupling at its center joint, the one component without frick reinforcement. The energy cell ruptures, the staff goes dark and the guard collapses with it. The third and fourth guards are already moving when he force pushes both of them off the platform's open edge. There is no railing. They fall without ceremony. Dooku watches this. Then he draws his lightsaber. The red blade is everything the record said, curved hilt giving it an arc of movement that a standard grip cannot match. Makashi form built into the weapon's design itself, decades of refinement in every component. He ignites it with the ease of someone uncapping a pen. "You've surprised me," Dooku says. "I don't often say that. Enjoy it." He moves. Makashi is a form of conversation. That is how the old masters described it. A back and forth, a dialogue of precision and response, the form designed to find the gap in another fighter's language and speak directly into it. Every attack is a question, every counter is an answer. The form rewards patience and punishes aggression. Anakin does not answer the questions. He has known Dooku's Makashi for 23 years, not as something he experienced, but as something he studied, cataloged, and understood from the inside out, because Vader always studied the opponents he didn't get to fight, the ones who died at someone else's hands, the ones whose files ended in outcomes he didn't choose. He knows where every Makashi line wants to go. He knows the shoulder tell before the thrust. He knows the wrist rotation that precedes the high line. He knows the form's one structural weakness, which is that it was designed for civilized duels with opponents who respect the premise, and he is not going to respect the premise. The first exchange lasts less than 4 seconds. Dooku thrusts high. Anakin steps inside the line, not beside it, inside it, too close for the curved blade's geometry to function, and deflects the hilt rather than the blade. His own blade goes low. Dooku catches it on a rotation. The impact travels up Dooku's sword arm and he absorbs it and counters with a backhand slash that is technically perfect. Anakin is not there. He is 2 meters to Dooku's left, force-enhanced speed taken to an extreme that Makashi's geometry cannot calculate fast enough to address, his feet covering the distance in a fraction of what reflex can track. It is not something Makashi has had to account for. No opponent has ever been fast enough to require it. Dooku adjusts, he adjusts fast, faster than someone his age should, but the adjustment costs him the center of the platform. Anakin presses the advantage, his blade screaming through the air in a diagonal cut that Dooku barely parries. The elderly Sith realizes he is in genuine danger. He shifts tactics, adding psychological warfare through taunting. "Your anger is showing, young one. The dark side flows through you. I can feel it. You're already falling just as my master predicted." "I fell decades ago," Anakin responds, his voice flat. "This is me climbing back up." He launches a force push that staggers Dooku. The count recovers quickly, using force speed to close distance and attack with a rapid thrust sequence. 1, 2, 3 strikes aimed at vital points. Anakin parries each with minimal movement, his Sorasu defensive knowledge layered beneath his Gem-So aggression. Dooku senses this. He sees something approaching in the form of a 19-year-old with the eyes of someone much older. The Count reaches for his signature technique. Force lightning erupts from his fingertips, the same technique he used to incapacitate an unprepared opponent on this very world in another version of events. The lightning arcs across the platform. Anakin raises his blade. The lightning strikes it, crackling around him, painful, manageable. Dooku presses, but Anakin is already inside his reach again. Gems so power driving the sequence, and there is no room left for the elegant distance Makashi requires. He sees the opening, a faint overextension in Dooku's right wrist, a legacy of age and old injuries, visible only to someone who has studied every recording of this man's dueling history. One cut, the curved lightsaber hilt hits the platform floor. Dooku's sword hand follows it, separated cleanly at the wrist, cauterized before it falls. Dooku goes to one knee. Not from the pain is there, in the force around him, real and immediate, but from the body's instinctive response to catastrophic sensory input. His remaining hand goes to his wrist. He looks at the floor. He looks at Anakin. He says nothing. Anakin deactivates his lightsaber. "You were going to be replaced," Anakin says. His voice is level, no heat in it, no triumph. "Your master was always going to have you killed once you'd served your purpose." He had already chosen the replacement. He looks at the man on one knee in front of him, at the white hair, at the face of someone who left the Jedi Order because he believed the institution had become too corrupt to save itself, and then built something worse in its place with the sincere conviction that it was better. "You have information I need about him, about his plans, about what he's already put in place that we don't yet know to look for." He crouches, bringing himself level. "You're going to give it to me, and then the Council is going to decide what to do with you. But you're going to survive this day. That's more than your master was planning to offer." Dooku looks at him for a long moment. His eyes are the color of shallow water over dark stone, and whatever is moving in them is complex enough that reading it would require more time than is currently available. "Who are you?" Dooku says, not hostile, genuinely asking. "A warning," Anakin says. The first one he didn't account for. Padmé appears at his shoulder with a set of restraints taken from one of the fallen Magna Guards. She applies them without comment, with the efficiency of someone who has decided that the situation requires practical action, and that practical action is what she provides. Dooku does not resist. Below them, through the open edge of the platform, the arena battle is resolving. He can feel it in the Force, the Jedi holding, the clone army arriving, the arithmetic tipping irrevocably toward one outcome. The Separatist leadership will scatter, the droid foundry will be secured. The official story of what happened on Geonosis will be that the Republic responded to a crisis and won. The unofficial story, the one that will move through military channels and intelligence reports and the lower levels of the temple in the weeks to come, will be different. It will involve a Padawan on a landing platform, an account on one knee, and a duel that lasted, by most accounts, somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds. He does not care what they call it. He looks at the solar sailor, still waiting, sail still furled, going nowhere. He looks at Dooku's lightsaber hilt on the ground, picks it up, weighs it in his hand. Then he looks toward Coruscant, which is not visible from here, which is never visible from here, being on the other side of the galaxy, but which is there, precisely there, with its 8 trillion lives and its Senate and its Chancellor's office, where a man who orchestrated all of this is sitting right now receiving news of how his design is performing. The Clone Wars were supposed to start today. They won't. But the war that matters, the one that has never really been about separatists or the Republic or clone armies or any of the things it has been dressed up as, that war is still exactly where he left it. He closes his hand around the curved hilt and does not look away from the direction he cannot see. The council chamber is exactly as he remembers it. 13 seats in a circle, 12 of them filled, the afternoon light coming through the curved transparisteel and slanted columns that move across the floor as Coruscant's sun tracks its arc. The city below is 8 trillion people going about their lives without any knowledge of what is being discussed above them, which is how it has always been and which is, he has come to understand, one of the structural failures of the institution he is currently standing in the center of. They are all looking at him. He stands without fidgeting. He does not fill silences with movement or sound. This is not something a 19-year-old Padawan learns to do. It is something acquired across decades of standing in rooms where being still was the only thing standing between you and giving something away. And he is aware that this, among all the things he has displayed in the past 4 days, is perhaps the most telling. Mace Windu speaks first. He almost always speaks first. Walk us through Geonosis, he says, from your landing to the moment we arrived on the platform. He walks them through it. He is precise and sequential, and he omits nothing except the things that cannot yet be said. The dry wash landing, the maintenance shaft, the timing of Dooku's arrival relative to the arena engagement, Padmé's handling of the Magna Guards. He includes this fully, gives her exact credit because accuracy matters more than the politics of who sounds capable. The duel itself, he describes it in the same duration it took, which means he is finished describing it in less time than it takes Ki-Adi-Mundi to draw a full breath. Silence, 15 seconds, May says, approximately, against Count Dooku. He pauses. A Jedi Master, former member of this council, past his 80th year and the finest practitioner of Makashi form in the living order. Yes, in the seat to Mace's left, Plo Koon sits with the patience of someone waiting for an equation to resolve. Ki-Adi-Mundi has the expression of a man performing arithmetic on something that will not add up regardless of how many times he runs it. Shakti is watching Anakin with the quality of attention that a person gives to something they are trying to classify and cannot. Obi-Wan, seated in a chair carried in for the debrief, the sand of Geonosis still visible in the creases of his robe, is looking at Anakin with an expression that is not any of these things. It is the expression of a man who has known someone for 10 years and is in the process of discovering that he did not know them. Yoda speaks. His eyes have been closed for most of the debrief. The secondary defense grid coordinates, he says, provided you them before the engagement. Accurate they were. How obtained? Cross-referenced over time. Cross-referenced. Yoda opens his eyes. Classified reports you accessed how, exactly? I asked the right questions of people who had the answers. Mace's jaw tightens. That's not an answer. It's the answer I can give right now. He meets Mace's eyes. With respect, I understand this is unsatisfying. I am asking you to hold the question until there is more to say, and to recognize that the alternative, not acting on the information, waiting until I could explain its provenance, would have meant Dooku escaping with everything he knows intact, and the Clone Wars beginning this morning on separatist terms. The room is quiet. The Clone Wars, Mace says. What this was going to become. What it was designed to become. He does not stop. The Geonosis engagement was not a separatist military overreach. It was a designed escalation. The crisis was manufactured. The separatist movement, the clone army, the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala, they are all components of a single operation running for years, orchestrated by someone who is not Count Dooku. You're suggesting Dooku is himself a tool. I'm stating it, yes. With what evidence? Dooku himself, Anakin says. Bring him in. Dooku is brought in under 4-guard escort, his wrist sealed in a force suppression cuff that renders the force about as accessible to him as color is to the blind. He has, in the hours since Geonosis, settled into something that is not quite cooperation but is not resistance either. A state of precise self-interest, the calculation of a man who has run his options and found most of them closed and is in the process of deciding what to do with the ones that remain. He looks at the council, they look at him. He has sat in this room before, in a chair that is now occupied by someone else, and whatever he feels about this is too controlled to read clearly. Yoda speaks first. To him, voluntarily you will speak to us. I will speak to you, Dooku says, because Skywalker informed me that my master intended to have me killed once I had served my purpose. And because I have had several hours to evaluate whether this is consistent with what I know about him, and I find that it is. He glances at Anakin. How he knew this about my master's intentions is a question I would also like answered, but I am willing to set it aside. Who is your master? Mace says. Dooku looks at him. Darth Sidious. The name lands in the chamber the way a stone lands in still water. The impact itself brief, the disturbance spreading outward from it in all directions. Darth Sidious, Mace repeats. The Sith Lord who orchestrated the separatist movement from its inception, Dooku says, without inflection. Who directed me in my role as Count Dooku, publicly the political leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, privately his instrument, who has been embedded within the Republic's own government for at least 13 years, possibly longer, who commissioned the clone army through a proxy, using the credentials of Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, whom he subsequently had eliminated, as a weapon against this order. He pauses. Who operates under a public identity that none of you have suspected because he is exceptionally skilled at occupying the exact position from which suspicion deflects. Ki-Adi-Mundi says, "You're describing a member of the Senate. I'm describing the Chancellor. This silence is different from the previous ones." Mace Windu stands. Not aggressively. He does not move toward Dooku, does not reach for his lightsaber, but the standing itself is a statement, the body expressing what the voice is not yet saying. "You're accusing Palpatine," he says, Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, sitting head of state who has the support of— "You are supposed," Dooku says, with the precise diction of a man who taught rhetoric for 20 years, "to investigate it," which is different. Mace turns to Anakin. The look is not soft. "You knew this." "Yes. Before Geonosis, and you chose not to. I chose to give you evidence before the accusation." He remains still. "You would not have acted on a Padawan telling you the Supreme Chancellor is a Sith Lord without evidence. I needed Dooku in custody and willing to testify before I could give you the foundation to stand on. That is why Geonosis happened the way it happened." Obi-Wan closes his eyes briefly, opens them. Yoda has not moved. He is watching Anakin with the particular quality of attention that 900 years produces. Not scrutiny, something older than scrutiny. Something that has seen enough iterations of events to recognize patterns that other beings don't live long enough to name. "Evidence," Yoda says. "More you have, feel it I do." He breathes. This is the moment. The inhibitor chips. He has been holding this one carefully, because it is not just evidence. It is the proof that Palpatine's plan runs deeper than politics, that it has been built into the physical bodies of every soldier the Republic has, that the war machine they just used to win Geonosis is itself a weapon aimed backward. "The clone army," he says, "every soldier." During embryonic development on Kamino, a control device was implanted in their brain tissue, an organic chip designed to respond to a specific command transmission and override the host's independent will. There are contingency orders, numbered protocols. Order 66 compels every clone soldier to turn on and execute their Jedi commanding officers. Simultaneously, across every theater of engagement, they would do this without being able to choose otherwise. No one speaks. "The chips can be verified," he continues. "Surgically, any medical droid with neurological capability can locate and identify them. I am telling you now so that we remove them before Palpatine realizes we know they exist. Once he understands his execution mechanism has been discovered, he will accelerate whatever timeline he is working from." He watches the specific faces, Ki-Adi-Mundi's color shifting towards something ashen, Plo Koon's stillness acquiring a different quality, Shaak Ti's hands moving to the armrests of her chair and gripping. Mace Windu sits back down, slowly. "You're telling us," he says, "that the army we just used on Geonosis—" "Yes. That every clone, every one." Silence. The afternoon light has moved. The columns on the floor are longer now, stretched toward the chamber's far edge. The inhibitor chip is smaller than a thumbnail. He holds the specimen container up to the light in the temple's medical wing, the chip suspended in preservative solution, translucent, faintly bioluminescent at its core where the organic components are still technically active. And he thinks about how long this thing has been growing inside people he has led into combat, and what that says about the nature of trust, and what it says about him that for 23 years he knew it was there and never told them. Across the room, the Kaminoan medical consultant the council flew in overnight is completing her verification report. Her species is not given to visible discomfort, but something in the set of her elongated neck suggests that she has found the past 6 hours professionally difficult. She should. "The chip's behavioral override function is confirmed," she says. She does not look at Anakin when she says it. "The trigger mechanism responds to a specific frequency-encoded command. The command architecture is— it is not standard." The Kaminoans produced the chip to the commission provided. The Order 66 override was embedded within the commission itself. "We built what we were contracted to build." A pause, precise and careful. The purpose of the override, as described to us, was absolute command compliance. We did not question the commission's framing. Mace's jaw tightens. "You understood what you were installing." "We understood we were installing compliance architecture," she says. "We were not given the designation Order 66. We were given specifications." She sets down her data instrument. "We followed them." Mace looks at Anakin. The look carries everything that cannot yet be said about what accountability for this will eventually look like. "This is documented," Anakin says. "All of it, the commission trail, the authorization codes, every layer of it leads back to the same office." Obi-Wan speaks for the first time since the debrief began. His voice is careful in the way that careful voices are when they are covering for something larger. Anakin, how long have you known this? At the face of the man he watched die twice, once at 23 in a burning body and a burning suit, and once at 57 in a corridor, on his knees, voluntary, his choice, the only pure choice anyone made in that whole sequence of events. The face is 10 years younger than the first time and 40 years younger than the second, and it is looking at him with the specific grief of someone who loves a person and is watching that person be somewhere they cannot follow. Long enough, he says, to do something about it. Yoda raises his gimmer stick from the floor, sets it down once, the soft knock of carved wood against stone, which in 900 years has served as a gavel, a period, a way of pulling a room back into the present moment. Investigate the chips we will, he says. Tonight, secretly, if true they are. He does not finish this. He does not need to. Palpatine, careful we must be. Move against a sitting chancellor without evidence a court will accept. We cannot. Tear the Republic apart. The accusation alone would. I know, Anakin says. More evidence we need. Yoda looks at him. Have it you do. More than you've shown. It isn't a question. Yes, he says. Then when you are ready, Yoda says, bring it. The council begins to move toward the procedural, assignments, surveillance protocols, the medical verification of the clone chips, the question of who can be trusted with which pieces of this. He listens. He answers what is asked of him. He does not volunteer the things that are not yet time for. At the chamber's edge, Obi-Wan falls into step beside him as the session closes. They walk together out of the council chamber into the temple corridor, where the late light from Coruscant's sun is doing something amber and exhausted across the stone floor, and for 20 meters, neither of them says anything. Then Obi-Wan says quietly, "Who are you?" He means it the way Dooku meant it on the platform. Not hostile, not accusatory, just a man trying to see clearly and finding that the thing he is looking at won't hold still long enough to resolve. The same person I always was, Anakin says. Just further along. Obi-Wan walks beside him in silence for another few steps. Further along than 19, he says, yes. But he does not leave, either. He matches his pace to Anakin's, and they walk the temple corridor together in the amber light, toward whatever comes next, which is the thing it has always been, too large to see whole, too close to avoid. Varakino at dusk is the same lake it was 4 days ago. He stands at the balcony railing and watches the water change color, the blue bleeding out of it, the copper coming in the process as reliable and indifferent as breathing. And he thinks about the particular cruelty of the Force, which returned him to this exact spot, this exact light, this exact sound of waterfalls over stone, and gave him the chance to do it differently without ever asking whether differently would be enough. Behind him, inside, Padmé is somewhere. He can feel her presence in the retreat the way he has always been able to feel her, not as Force sensitivity on her part, she has none, but as a quality of awareness he developed across years of knowing where she was in every room, in every building, on every planet, the way you learn to know the location of a thing you cannot afford to lose. She comes to stand beside him, not touching. She has learned, across 4 days, that he does not startle but that he notices everything, and she has adjusted to this the way water adjusts to rock, not yielding entirely, finding a path through. You've been out here for an hour, she says. I know. The lake is copper now. Oma Dun is appearing at the sky's edge. He watches it, and she watches him, and the waterfall runs its commentary over the same rocks it ran over this morning and yesterday and 23 years ago when he was here the first time, and couldn't understand why the world felt like it was about to end. He says, I need to tell you something. She waits. She has become extraordinarily good at waiting in the past 4 days, which is a skill she already had, honed over 8 years in a Senate where most power transfers through the space between what is said and what is meant. All of it, he says. Not the parts I've been giving you. All of it. He tells her in the order it happened, because that is the only order that makes it comprehensible. He tells her about the suit, the breathing apparatus, the mask. He describes it the way you describe something you wore for so long it stopped feeling like something external and started feeling like the shape of you, with the flat precision of a person who has made peace with an ugliness and is no longer performing revulsion at it. He tells her what his hands became, what his voice became, what his lungs became and what they cost, and what it meant to spend 23 years measuring his life in the mechanical rhythm of a machine doing the work his body could no longer do. She listens without moving. He tells her about Palpatine, not as he's been describing it to the Council, calibrated, evidenced, sourced. He tells her what it felt like to be 19 years old and have someone look at him like he was exceptional at a time when he had spent his whole life being exceptional in ways that no one wanted. He tells her how a man becomes the thing he is shaped to become, how the shaping happens slowly and then completely, how you can be aware that something is being done to you and still be unable to stop it. Because the alternative is admitting that the person doing it does not love you, and you are not yet ready to survive that. She says quietly, he knew about us. Yes, he used it. Not immediately, over years. How? About the visions. Not the Mortis visions, the original ones. The ones that came while he was sleeping next to her in secret apartments, on Coruscant, the same face night after night, her face white and still and hands folded. He tells her what it is to love something so much that the fear of losing it becomes indistinguishable from the thing itself, and what Palpatine understood about that specific vulnerability, and how precisely and patiently he exploited it. She is quiet for a long moment. And me, she says. Not a question yet. A prompt. He tells her about Mustafar, about the argument, about the specific words she used. He still has them, still carries them. You're going down a path I can't follow. And what he heard when she said them, which was not what she meant. He tells her about Obi-Wan being on the ship, and what he thought that meant, and how by that point the fear had grown large enough to fill the space where judgment should have been. He tells her what he did. He says it directly, without softening the grammar of it. He raised his hand. The Force moved through him. Her hands went to her throat. Padmé does not flinch. She absorbs this the way she absorbs everything she cannot change, fully, without performance, letting it settle into her at the level where real things go. She survived the Force choke, he says. The medical droids confirmed it. She died. He stops. Restarts. The droids said she lost the will to live. I have spent 23 years deciding whether to believe that and whether it makes it better or worse, and I have not reached a conclusion. The children, she says. Her voice is careful. You said children. Twins. Luke and Leia. The names are the first things he has said in this conversation that cost him something audible. They were born on Polis Massa. They were taken from you before you could hold them. Luke went to Tatooine. Leia went to Alderaan. Bail Organa raised her. Owen Lars raised Luke. She turns away from the lake and looks at him directly for the first time since he began. Her face in the dusk light is 24 years old and has heard in the last 20 minutes the complete shape of a future that did not happen to her, but that happened to her, and she is processing it with the controlled thoroughness of someone who has spent 8 years learning to hold terrible information without being destroyed by it. Luke, she says, and Leia, yes, and they never knew each other. Not for a long time. He looks at the lake. Luke found out eventually. Found out about me too. On a space station, he was 23. I told him I was his father and asked him to join me, and he refused and chose to fall rather than take my hand. She is very still. He was right to refuse, he says. What I was offering him was a cage. He understood it better than I did at the time. He breathes. He was the one who saved me in the end. The very end. He saw something in me that I had stopped believing was there, and he was right about it, and it was too late for most things but not for everything. A pause. He would have been extraordinary. He still will be in this one. Padmé looks at him for a long time. When she speaks, what she says is not what he expects. She asks, "Are you still him?" He understands the question. It is the only question that matters. I carry everything he was, he says, every choice, every face. I remember all of it, but I am not. I am not building toward the same end. The man who did those things made them because he was afraid and isolated and being actively shaped toward them by someone who understood exactly which levers to pull. I am not afraid anymore. I am not isolated. And Palpatine does not have 20 more years to work on me because I know what he is and I know what he does, and I will not give him the time. That's not quite what I asked. No, he says, it isn't. He turns to face her. I don't know, he says, whether the capacity for all of it is still in me. I think it probably is. I think the things people become are not external to them. They are not something done to them from the outside that leaves them unchanged inside. He found something real in me and made it monstrous. The something real is still there. He holds her gaze. I am telling you this because you deserve to know who you are standing next to. Not the story I could have told you. the actual architecture. She is quiet for so long that the copper bleeds out of the lake entirely, and the silver of early evening replaces it. Then she says, "In the other life, did I know? Before the end, did I know all of this? No. We kept it. All of it. Secret because of the code, secret because of the war, secret because we thought the secrets were protecting something." He stops. They weren't. She nods. Once, slowly, the nod of a woman completing a calculation. "Then I am making a different choice," she says. Then she did. With more information. She reaches out and takes his hand. The right one, the one that is only a hand. She turns it over and looks at the palm the way she might study a document. "I know what this hand did." "Yes. And I know what it's done this week." "Yes." She closes both her hands around his. "That is not nothing," she says. "The distance between those two things is not nothing. A person who could travel that distance." She stops. Starts again with the precision of someone choosing exact words. "I'm not marrying who you were. I'm not marrying who you were afraid of becoming. I'm marrying what you're doing with the distance between them." He does not speak for a moment. He does not trust himself to. When he does, what comes out is not the thing he planned to say. "I don't have an officiant," he says. I didn't plan further than the conversation." Something shifts in her face, not quite a smile, the thing underneath a smile which is warmer and less public. "R2 is inside," she says. "He's witnessed stranger things." They marry at the balcony railing as the first stars appear over Lake Varikino, with no officiant and no ceremony, and R2-D2 blinking acknowledgement from the doorway. They exchange the words in their own language, not a ritual's language, the words two people use when they are telling each other something true that they intend to keep telling each other for as long as they both exist. He keeps his eyes open. So does she. Below them, the lake holds the starlight on its surface without diminishing it, takes it in, carries it, gives it back undamaged, and the waterfall runs and the twin moons move their slow arcs. And somewhere on Coruscant, a man who built his entire career on knowing which secrets people were keeping has no idea that the one secret he relied on most has just been told. The Senate building at night is a different architecture. The day version is populated, performative, every corridor calibrated to project the impression of democratic function, every surface aware of being observed. The night version is what it actually is, a building, stone, and transparent steel and load-bearing framework, indifferent to the purposes it serves. The cleaning droids have finished their circuits. The administrative staff have gone home. The Senate guards on the upper levels are on a rotation that Anakin has already mapped and already accounted for. He walks through the main corridor with 6 Jedi behind him, and does not look like someone who has spent the last 3 hours explaining to the Jedi Council exactly why speed matters more than deliberation tonight, and exactly what waiting until morning would cost them, and exactly what Palpatine would do with the 12 hours between now and a morning approach that he would see coming. Mace Windu walks to his left, Obi-Wan to his right. Behind them, Yoda, moving with the unhurried efficiency of something 900 years old that has never needed to rush because it has always understood time better than time understood it. Plo Koon, Shak Ti, Kit Fisto, 7 Jedi. 4 went in the version of this night he has been preventing since Varikino. 2 came out. 7 will not be enough to make this easy, but nothing is going to make this easy, and easy is not what he is here for. Mace says, "Lo, when we enter..." "He's already awake," Anakin says. "He's been awake since we left the temple." A beat. You can feel him. I could always feel him. I just didn't know what I was feeling. The office doors are opened. Not ajar. Open, both of them, fully, the way doors are opened by someone who wants to make a specific point about thresholds and who crosses them. The panoramic view of Coruscant at night fills the far wall from floor to ceiling, the city's light turning everything inside the office to silhouette. Palpatine stands at the window with his back to them. He does not turn when they enter. He says, "I counted your footsteps. 7. He pauses. "You're the one who arranged this." Still not to any of them specifically, still to the window. I could feel the formation, the mind behind it. Now he turns. The grandfatherly face makes one final appearance, not as performance, just as the last moment of an old habit before it is no longer needed. "I didn't think it would be tonight. You moved faster than I expected." "We learned that from you," Anakin says. Something changes in Palpatine's face. Not the mask dropping. The mask was never real, and so it cannot drop. What changes is the abandonment of effort. The face beneath is the same face. It just stops pretending to be anything other than what it is. The yellow comes into his eyes like something that was always there, waiting. Darth Sidious, Mace Windu says. A statement, not an address. A naming. By the authority of the Jedi Council and the Galactic Senate, Palpatine moves. This is the thing the reports never convey accurately. They describe the speed, they measure it against known force-enhanced movement, they compare it to other recorded engagements. The description is technically correct and completely insufficient. It is not fast the way a fast person is fast. It is fast the way physics is sometimes negotiable, as if the space between where he was and where he is simply declined to participate. He crosses the office in less time than the sentence takes to finish. 3 lightsabers ignite simultaneously. Mace, Obi-Wan, Shock T converging from separate angles. The triangle of attack that Anakin briefed them on. The formation designed to prevent the kind of single-target focus that dismantled the original strike team in seconds. Palpatine does not fight the triangle. He folds into it inside the geometry rather than against it, where the angles become each other's problem and the blades have no clean lines to travel. His saber moves in Juyo patterns, unpredictable, purposefully without rhythm, each attack designed to produce an overextension that generates the next opening. He is not trying to kill all of them, he is trying to make them interfere with each other. Mace understands this. His Vapad responds to it, the form that feeds on the opponent's own darkness, that uses the Force's presence in a dark side wielder as the source of its own power. Against a Sith Lord, it is the closest thing to a natural counter that the Order has ever developed. Plo Koon takes a hit across the arm. He does not go down. Yoda enters. The smallest being in the room produces the most immediate reconfiguration of the space. Palpatine's movement pattern shifts, not retreating, never retreating, but adjusting the way a calculation adjusts when a new variable enters it. He and Yoda have a specific gravitational relationship, 2 very old things in the Force that have been aware of each other across the full span of Palpatine's deception. Yoda's blade ignites. He does not try lightning on Yoda, he tries it on Obi-Wan. The bolt is not a warning, it is everything at once. A sustained discharge that fills the space between them with blue-white fire, the kind that stops hearts and seizes muscles and ends people who are not prepared for it. Obi-Wan's blade catches the outer edge of it and dissipates what it can, and the rest goes around him and into the wall, and Obi-Wan stays standing through will alone, smoking, alive. Anakin is already moving. He has been waiting. The positioning he chose when they entered was not random. He has been standing at the angle that places him in Palpatine's peripheral space, the quadrant that Juyo naturally ignores because Juyo is aggressive and aggression focuses forward. He has been there for this specific moment. The moment Palpatine commits to the lightning, to the large gesture, to the thing that requires both hands and full attention, he crosses the distance. No saber, not yet. He reaches out with the Force, both hands, every channel open, every connection to the living Force that 23 years in a suit diminished and 19-year-old hands have restored, and he holds. Not an attack, a grip, the specific telekinetic containment that the Chosen One's midi-chlorian count makes possible, and that Palpatine, for all his power, cannot simply walk out of, because Anakin has more of the Force than anything alive and he is not letting go. Palpatine strains against it. He is extraordinary. The strain shows what he is, the full weight of what the dark side has built in him over 70-plus years, pressing outward against the grip. And it is enormous, and it costs Anakin more than he allows to show. The floor beneath his feet cracks, the window behind Palpatine's spiderwebs, but he holds. Mace moves to Palpatine's right, Yoda moves to the left. Palpatine looks at Anakin across the contained space between them. The yellow eyes are fully present now, no suppression, no layer of performance over them. He is assessing, running the same calculation he has been running since Varakino, since a 19-year-old Padawan appeared on a landing platform in 15 seconds over a Sith Lord. "You've been here before," he says. Not loud, conversational almost, the tone of a man finding a piece of information and placing it correctly at last. He doesn't answer. Palpatine's expression resolves into something that is not quite respect and not quite rage, and is, perhaps, recognition of what Anakin is, of what Anakin was, of the specific terrible irony of what has been done to his plan and by whom. How many years? Palpatine says. Still no answer. Mace brings his blade down. It is not an elegant stroke. It does not need to be. Vapad at full extension is not elegance. It is convergence. The form's entire accumulated force meeting one point in space, At one moment in time, and Palpatine's grip on his own weapon wavers because of the telekinetic containment and because Yoda's blade presses simultaneously from the opposite side and because there is no position left that covers both. His defense breaks, one clean sound, then nothing. The body does not fall dramatically, it folds. The way old things fold when the structure that held them upright is no longer present. Not a collapse, not a statement, just the uncomplicated physics of mass without support. The lightsaber goes out. The yellow fades from the eyes, not dramatically, just gradually, the same way a screen goes dark when its power is cut. The office is quiet. The Coruscant skyline continues through the cracked window, unchanged. 8 trillion people, asleep or awake or going about their nights, none of them knowing that the shape of the next 20 years just shifted in a room they will never see. Anakin releases the Force grip he has been holding. His hands drop to his sides. He breathes. It is a long exhale, longer than a normal exhale, longer than his lungs strictly require, the kind of breath that is doing more than oxygenation. He stands in the ruined office, with the smoke still clearing from Obi-Wan's wall and the cracked window framing the city, and the body of Darth Sidious on the floor. And he breathes, and the 45-year-old in him and the 19-year-old in him breathe together for the first time, without pulling in opposite directions. Around him, the Jedi are doing the things that follow, checking on each other, confirming injuries, the procedural aftermath of something that required everything. Plo Koon's arm is bad. Kit Fisto is sitting against the wall, conscious, and will have a story to tell later. Obi-Wan is standing, which is enough for now. Mace Windu moves to Anakin's side. He does not speak immediately. He looks at the floor. Then at Anakin. "It's done," he says. "Yes, you knew this would work." Anakin says, "That's not the same thing." Mace looks at him for a moment longer, the shatter point behind his eyes. Whatever it has been reading in Anakin since Geonosis, the thing that has been giving him readings he couldn't classify, seems for the first time to settle into something legible. He doesn't say what he sees. He nods. Once. Yoda stands at the room's center, leaning on his stick, his eyes closed. Whatever he is doing is internal and vast and will take whatever time it takes. When he opens his eyes, what is in them is not relief. It is the expression of someone who has lived long enough to understand that endings are never only endings. "Much work," he says quietly. "Ahead there is." "I know," Anakin says. He looks at the window. At Coruscant. At the city that does not know yet what it has been freed from, or what it cost, or who paid it. He looks at his hands, the hands that held Palpatine in place, the hands that are still 19 years old on the outside and will never be only that again. He looks at them until they are just hands. Then he turns toward the door, toward the corridor, toward the long work of everything that comes next. The Senate building at night is a different architecture. The day version is populated, performative, every corridor calibrated to project the impression of democratic function, every surface aware of being observed. The night version is what it actually is, a building, stone, and transparent steel and load-bearing framework, indifferent to the purposes it serves. The cleaning droids have finished their circuits. The administrative staff have gone home. The Senate guards on the upper levels are on a rotation that Anakin has already mapped and already accounted for. He walks through the main corridor with 6 Jedi behind him and does not look like someone who has spent the last 3 hours explaining to the Jedi Council exactly why speed matters more than deliberation tonight, and exactly what waiting until morning would cost them, and exactly what Palpatine would do with the 12 hours between now and a morning approach that he would see coming. Mace Windu walks to his left, Obi-Wan to his right. Behind them, Yoda, moving with the unhurried efficiency of something 900 years old that has never needed to rush because it has always understood time better than time understood it. Plo Koon, Shak Ti, Kit Fisto, 7 Jedi. 4 went in the version of this night he has been preventing since Varakino. 2 came out. 7 is better. 7 will not be enough to make this easy, but nothing is going to make this easy, and easy is not what he is here for. Mace says, "Lo," when we enter. "He's already awake," Anakin says. "He's been awake since we left the temple. A beat. You can feel him. I just didn't know what I was feeling." The office doors are open, not ajar, open, both of them fully, the way doors are opened by someone who wants to make a specific point about thresholds and who crosses them. The panoramic view of Coruscant at night fills the far wall from floor to ceiling, the city's light turning everything inside the office to silhouette. Palpatine stands at the window with his back to them. He does not turn when they enter. He says, "I counted your footsteps. 7." He pauses. "You're the one who arranged this, still not to any of them specifically, still to the window." I could feel the formation, the mind behind it. Now he turns. The grandfatherly face makes one final appearance, not as performance, just as the last moment of an old habit before it is no longer needed. "I didn't think it would be tonight. You moved faster than I expected." "We learned that from you," Anakin says. Something changes in Palpatine's face. Not the mask dropping. The mask was never real, and so it cannot drop. What changes is the abandonment of effort. The face beneath is the same face. It just stops pretending to be anything other than what it is. The yellow comes into his eyes like something that was always there, waiting. "Darth Sidious," Mace Windu says. A statement, not an address. A naming. By the authority of the Jedi Council and the Galactic Senate, Palpatine moves. This is the thing the reports never convey accurately. They describe the speed, they measure it against known force-enhanced movement, they compare it to other recorded engagements. The description is technically correct and completely insufficient. It is not fast the way a fast person is fast. It is fast the way physics is sometimes negotiable, as if the space between where he was and where he is simply declined to participate. He crosses the office in less time than the sentence takes to finish. Kit Fisto's green blade comes up, catches the first strike. The second strike comes from an angle the first one created, geometry is weapon, and Kit's defense covers it but barely, the impact driving him sideways into the curved wall with enough force that the plating cracks. He stays standing, not for long. 3 lightsabers ignite simultaneously. Mace, Obi-Wan, Shaak Ti converging from separate angles, the triangle of attack that Anakin briefed them on. The formation designed to prevent the kind of single-target focus that Palpatine used to dismantle the original strike team in seconds. Palpatine does not fight the triangle. He folds into it, inside the geometry rather than against it, where the angles become each other's problem and the blades have no clean lines to travel. His saber moves in Juyo patterns, unpredictable, purposefully without rhythm, each attack designed to produce an overextension that generates the next opening. He is not trying to kill all of them. He is trying to make them interfere with each other. Mace understands this. His Vapad responds to it, the form that feeds on the opponent's own darkness, that uses the Force's presence in a dark side wielder as the source of its own power. Against a Sith Lord, it is the closest thing to a natural counter that the Order has ever developed. Plo Koon takes a hit across the arm. He does not go down. Yoda enters. The smallest being in the room produces the most immediate reconfiguration of the space. Palpatine's movement pattern shifts, not retreating, never retreating, but adjusting the way a calculation adjusts when a new variable enters it. He and Yoda have a specific gravitational relationship, 2 very old things in the Force that have been aware of each other across the full span of Palpatine's deception. Yoda's blade ignites. He does not try lightning on Yoda, he tries it on Obi-Wan. The bolt is not a warning. It is everything at once, a sustained discharge that fills the space between them with blue-white fire, the kind that stops hearts and seizes muscles and ends people who are not prepared for it. Obi-Wan's blade catches the outer edge of it and dissipates what it can, and the rest goes around him and into the wall, and Obi-Wan stays standing through will alone, smoking, alive. Anakin is already moving. He has been waiting. The positioning he chose when they entered was not random. He has been standing at the angle that places him in Palpatine's peripheral space, the quadrant that Juyo naturally ignores because Juyo is aggressive and aggression focuses forward. He has been there for this specific moment, the moment Palpatine commits to the lightning, to the large gesture, to the thing that requires both hands and full attention. He crosses the distance. No sabe, not yet. He reaches out with the Force, both hands, every channel open, every connection to the living Force that 23 years in a suit diminished, and 19-year-old hands have restored, and he holds. Not an attack, a grip, the specific telekinetic containment that the Chosen One's midichlorian count makes possible, and that Palpatine, for all his power, cannot simply walk out of. Because Anakin has more of the Force than anything alive, and he is not letting go. Palpatine strains against it. He is extraordinary. The strain shows what he is, the full weight of what the dark side has built in him over 70-plus years, pressing outward against the grip, and it is enormous and it costs Anakin more than he allows to show. The floor beneath his feet cracks, the window behind Palpatine spiderwebs, but he holds. Mace moves to Palpatine's right, Yoda moves to the left. Palpatine looks at Anakin across the contained space between them. The yellow eyes are fully present now, no suppression, no layer of performance over them. He is assessing, running the same calculation he has been running since Varakino, since a 19-year-old Padawan appeared on a landing platform in 15 seconds over a Sith Lord. "You've been here before?" he says, not loud, conversational almost, the tone of a man finding a piece of information and placing it correctly at last. He doesn't answer. Palpatine's expression resolves into something that is not quite respect and not quite rage, and is, perhaps, recognition of what Anakin is, of what Anakin was, of the specific, terrible irony of what has been done to his plan and by whom. "How many years?" Palpatine says. Still no answer. Mace brings his blade down. It is not an elegant stroke. It does not need to be. Vapad at full extension is not elegance, it is convergence. The form's entire accumulated force meeting one point in space at one moment in time, and Palpatine's grip on his own weapon wavers because of the telekinetic containment, and because Yoda's blade presses simultaneously from the opposite side, and because there is no position left that covers both. His defense breaks. One clean sound. Then nothing. The body does not fall dramatically, it folds. The way old things fold when the structure that held them upright is no longer present, not a collapse, not a statement, just the uncomplicated physics of mass without support. The lightsaber goes out, the yellow fades from the eyes, not dramatically, just gradually, the same way a screen goes dark when its power is cut. The office is quiet. The Coruscant skyline continues through the cracked window, unchanged, 8 trillion people asleep or awake, or going about their nights, none of them knowing that the shape of the next 20 years just shifted in a room they will never see. Anakin releases the force grip he has been holding. His hands drop to his sides. He breathes. It is a long exhale, longer than a normal exhale, longer than his lungs strictly require, the kind of breath that is doing more than oxygenation. He stands in the ruined office with the smoke still clearing from Obi-Wan's wall and the cracked window framing the city and the body of Darth Sidious on the floor. And he breathes, and the 45-year-old in him and the 19-year-old in him breathe together for the first time, without pulling in opposite directions. Around him, the Jedi are doing the things that follow, checking on each other, confirming injuries, the procedural aftermath of something that required everything. Plo Koon's arm is bad. Kit Fisto is sitting against the wall, conscious, and will have a story to tell later. Obi-Wan is standing, which is enough for now. Mace Windu moves to Anakin's side. He does not speak immediately, he looks at the floor. Then, at Anakin. "It's done," he says. "Yes." "You knew this would work," Anakin says. "That's not the same thing." Mace looks at him for a moment longer, the shatter point behind his eyes. Whatever it has been reading in Anakin since Geonosis, the thing that has been giving him readings he couldn't classify, seems for the first time to settle into something legible. He doesn't say what he sees. He nods. Once. Yoda stands at the room's center, leaning on his stick, his eyes closed. Whatever he is doing is internal and vast, and will take whatever time it takes. When he opens his eyes, what is in them is not relief. It is the expression of someone who has lived long enough to understand that endings are never only endings. "Much work," he says quietly, "ahead there is." "I know," Anakin says. He looks at the window, at Coruscant, at the city that does not know yet what it has been freed from, or what it cost, or who paid it. He looks at his hands, the hands that held Palpatine in place, the hands that are still 19 years old on the outside and will never be only that again. He looks at them until they are just hands. Then he turns toward the door, toward the corridor, toward the long work of everything that comes next. The Senate hears the news at dawn. Not all of it. Not the Sith Lord, not the manufactured war, not the inhibitor chips or the shell corporations, or the 13 years of orchestrated rot at the Republic's center. Those details will come in time, through official channels, through the committee hearings that Padmé has already begun preparing for with the methodical thoroughness of someone who understands that truth without structure is just noise. What the Senate hears at dawn, through the emergency address that Mon Mothma delivers in a voice that does not shake, is that Chancellor Palpatine is dead, that evidence of treason has been confirmed by the Jedi Council, and that a provisional governance framework is in place pending democratic transition. The building erupts. Anakin is not in the building, he is on the temple's roof, watching the sun come up over Coruscant, and he is thinking about nothing in particular, which is the first time in either of his lives that nothing in particular has felt like enough. The transition takes 4 months. Padmé runs it the way she runs everything important. From the center, without appearing to be at the center, letting the people around her believe they are making decisions while ensuring the decisions that matter are made correctly. Bail Organa chairs the Provisional Council. Mon Mothma drafts the emergency constitutional measures. A rotating body of reform senators Padmé has been cultivating for 3 years provides the votes. The machinery of democracy, seized up and rusted from a decade of managed emergency powers, begins slowly to turn. Anakin is available when needed. He is needed less often than anyone expected, which is the point. His name carries weight in this period. The breaker of Geonosis, the Chancellor's executioner, weight that can be spent in rooms he doesn't have to enter, on problems he doesn't have to solve personally, because the weight does the work and he can be somewhere else. He is usually in the garden. The apartment they keep in Coruscant's residential levels has a small outdoor terrace, south-facing, catching the filtered light that makes it down through 800 kilometers of city above it. Someone planted things there years ago and then stopped caring for them, and they have been in a state of polite decline ever since. He finds this unacceptable in a way he cannot fully articulate, and he begins fixing it, which involves soil and time and an understanding of what living things need that turns out to be something he has. Padmé finds him there one evening with dirt on both hands and a look of concentration she has previously seen him direct at military tactical problems. She does not say anything. She leans in the doorway and watches him work, and the look on her face is one he has no name for but intends to keep. Captain Rex comes to him 3 weeks after Palpatine's death. He arrives at the temple without announcement and waits in the entrance hall with his helmet under his arm and the careful posture of someone who is not certain what kind of reception to expect. Anakin finds him there and brings him to a quiet room, and they sit across from each other, and Rex says, "We want to know who did it. Who ordered the chips?" "Palpatine," Anakin says, "through the Kaminoans. The documentation is being processed through the Senate committee. It will be public within a month." Rex absorbs this. All of us, all of you. A silence that is doing significant work. "The removal program," Rex says, "we've been told it's voluntary." It is. And after. That's yours to decide. He meets Rex's eyes, the eyes of a man grown from a template who has spent his entire existence being told what he is. You always had free will. The chip made it irrelevant under specific conditions. Those conditions no longer exist, but the will was always there. He pauses. You made choices throughout the war that were yours. Every time you questioned an order, every time you protected someone you didn't have to protect, that was you. Rex is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Some of the men want to keep serving, with pay and rights and the ability to leave. Some of them want names. They should have names." Rex nods. Once. He looks at his helmet, turning it slowly in his hands, the blue markings that are his and no one else's. "They've been calling you something." He says, "The men. I thought you should know." He looks up. The Sovereign Guardian started with the 501st after Geonosis. Spread from there, he does not respond immediately. "Why that?" "Because you don't rule anything," Rex says. "You just make sure the right things survive." He stands, settles the helmet under his arm again. "Sir," Anakin watches him go. "The Sovereign Guardian." He turns the name over the way he turned the curved lightsaber hilt after Geonosis, feeling its weight, deciding what it means to keep a thing. He visits Tatooine twice that year. Shmi is healthy. Not fully. The Tusken camp left things that do not entirely heal. She is not a woman who pretends, but present and whole where it matters, and occupying the Lars homestead with the specific contentment of someone who knows the value of what they have, because they have been close enough to losing it to understand the distance. Cliegg has 2 legs again. Bacta and time and the best prosthetics Republic credits can provide. He walks out to meet Anakin on the second visit, and shakes his hand and says nothing more than that, which is exactly the right amount. On the evening of the second visit, after Cliegg has gone inside, Anakin sits with his mother on the homestead's exterior ridge, and they watch the twin suns do what twin suns do, which is descend toward the horizon with a completeness and a color that no other planet manages. She asks him, after a long, comfortable quiet, to tell her about the other life, not the details, just the shape of it. Long, he says, hard, lonely. She looks at him with the particular quality of attention that only she has ever directed at him, the one that sees past the surface to something she decided was there when he was 4 years old and has never revised her opinion on. And now? He thinks about the apartment on Coruscant, the garden with dirt on his hands, the weight that moves through rooms without him having to be in them. He thinks about Obi-Wan, alive, who has been looking at him for 4 months with an expression that is slowly, cautiously recalibrating toward something like peace. He thinks about a door in the Senate building that will not have a man behind it ever again, and what the galaxy feels like with that door empty. He thinks about Padmé in the next room. Shorter, he says, so far. She laughs. It is a specific sound, warm and complete and entirely hers, and he has carried the absence of it for 23 years without being able to describe what was missing. And now here it is again, on a ridge on Tatooine, with the twin suns going down, and he does not look away from her face while she laughs, because he is not wasting a second of this. The twins arrive in a Coruscant medical facility on a morning in late autumn. Luke first, then Leia 12 minutes behind him, appearing to have strong opinions about the order of things from the beginning. They are healthy and complete, and making the specific sounds that new people make when they discover that the world outside is louder and colder and less enclosed than the one they left. And the medical droid notes, in its report, that the father is displaying an unusual fixation on the infants. He is counting their fingers. He does this twice for each child, starting over when he loses count, which he does not actually lose but pretends to, because it gives him a reason to do it again. 20 fingers on Luke, 20 on Leia, 40 total, all of them pointing in whatever directions new fingers point. Inward, outward, curled against small palms, reaching at nothing, reaching at everything. Padmé watches him do this from the bed, exhausted in the specific way that produces a clarity rather than a fog, and her expression is the one she wore in the doorway of the garden. They're perfect, she says. He looks up at her, then at the children, then at his own hands holding them, the right and the left, both organic, both present, both warm. Yes, he says, he means the children, he means the room. He means the woman in the bed, and the city outside, and the galaxy that has more wrong in it than this morning, fixed but also more right than yesterday allowed. He means the 40 fingers and the breathing and the fact that when he closes his eyes tonight, for the first time in either of his lives, he does not know what he will find there, and he is not afraid of the not knowing. He means all of it. In the years that followed, they would call me many things: the breaker of Geonosis, the Chancellor's executioner, the man who ended the Clone Wars before they started, Padmé's husband, the twins' father. None of these are wrong. None of them are complete. The Force gives and takes in equal measure. That's what they teach in the temple. What they don't teach is that sometimes the giving and the taking happen in the same moment, that you can lose everything and receive everything in the same breath, that the gift of a second chance is also the burden of knowing exactly what the first chance cost. I know what it cost. I know the number. I know the names. I carry them. But I also carry this: the sound of my children sleeping in the next room, the smell of the lake at Varikino, my mother's voice saying my name. The Force is with me, always. Anakin Skywalker, former Padawan of the Jedi Order, in a memoir he never published and never burned, found in a box in the Varikino retreat sometime after his death, written in a hand that was simultaneously too old and too young for the face in any of the photographs. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.